Hello friends, welcome to Technique. This is Nirmal here, and in this video we'll be doing the camera review of the new Poco F4 5G. So Poco F4 5G is the latest device under the F series. Now last year Poco had launched the Poco F3 GT. Now we had reviewed that camera. It had a 64 megapixel camera and found it to be quite good. In fact, the low light performance was not that great, but it was quite a good camera overall. Now how does the Poco F4 5G fare in the camera department? Now it also has a 64 megapixel triple camera setup. So let's see how good the camera experience is on this device. Now there is a change compared to the Poco F3 GT. Now this has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 870 chip. It's a pretty good chip actually, and it has a 64 megapixel camera as well. So let's see how good the camera experience is. So before that, if this is your first time on this channel, do hit that red subscribe button and also hit the bell icon to get notified of all the videos we publish. So let's begin. So first let's have a look at the hardware before going into the camera samples. Now you get a 64 megapixel triple camera setup. It's a 64 megapixel omnivision sensor, and you get an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and a macro sensor is also included. Now on the front panel you get a 20 megapixel selfie camera. So that's a camera setup on the Poco F4 5G. So let's see more into the camera to see how good the performance is. So let's begin. First let's have a look at the daylight captures. In terms of daylight captures, the 64 megapixel f1.8 sensor from OmniVision is able to capture good details. The colors are pretty good, and so is the details. The clarity of the image also looks good. The brightness levels are adequate. The sharpness levels are also good, but at times there is a bit of over sharpening happening. This could be easily fixed with updates. The dynamic range is also pretty good on the camera. While the colors are mostly accurate, there is a slight tendency to boost the sky colors, but not a major issue though. Overall, the daylight shots are quite good and usable, and most people won't have anything to complain here. Moving on to the 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, the images have good details, and surprisingly the 8 megapixel camera retains almost the same colors as the primary camera, even though the dynamic range isn't as good as the primary sensor. There is decent details, and sharpness levels are also quite okay for the 8 megapixel shooter, but there is a bit of blurriness and noise towards the edges, which is evident for an 8 megapixel shooter. Overall, the ultra wide angle camera is quite good and usable too. Now moving on to the close-up shots, here you can see good details and images of good sharpness levels and details. The colors are almost done well and pretty good in terms of saturation as well. The phone also comes with 2 megapixel macro sensor, and the results are pretty decent and nowhere close to the 5 megapixel tele-macro which Xiaomi used to have. It would have been great if Poco had used that 5 megapixel tele-macro sensor. Moving on to the portraits, here you get good looking portraits, and the skin tones are also good, and images looks natural too. If you do not want skin smoothening, you can turn off the beauty mode. The edge detection also seems to be pretty good. Now moving on to the low light images. In indoor lighting condition and artificial light, the camera is able to get you good looking shots, especially with optical image stabilization available for the primary camera. There is a bit of noise towards the edges though. When you move to extreme low light, it is better to turn on the night mode, and here you get good details. The images are clean and you get good sharpness levels too. The OIS helps in getting you better results. This is definitely better than the Poco F3 GT from last year in terms of low light performance. Moving on to the selfies, the 20 megapixel selfie camera does a good job here. The details are good and sharpness levels are also quite okay, although there is a bit of over sharpening at times. The skin tones are done well and looks natural too. Moreover, selfies are a personal choice, so you can decide based on the images. There is a portrait mode available in selfies, and it does a decent job altogether, although there is room for improvement in edge detection. Now moving on to the video recording, it can record videos in 4K at 60 FPS. One of the few phones capable of doing this at this price segment. There is also optical image stabilization on offer for the 4K 60 FPS while there is no EIS. Although the footage is sufficiently stable, it is not recommended for moving footages, and we can suggest 4K 30 FPS for moving footages. The sharpness levels are good and so are the details. The phone also supports 4K 30 FPS, and here the footage is stabilized and looks good too. There is good details and colors too. The 1080p at 60 FPS also does a good job with colors and sharpness levels. The 1080p 30 FPS also supports EIS and looks overall good with good color reproduction. The footage also has good sharpness levels and stabilization also looks okay. There is also 1080p available for ultra wide angle camera, and it looks decent as the video quality is a bit too soft and dynamic range isn't the best though. There is also slow motion support available, and it does a decent job overall. You can either go with 720p at a max of 960 fps or 1080p resolution at 120 fps. So this is the dual video mode on the Poco F4 5G, so you can record videos using both the rear camera as well as the front camera. So this is the front facing camera sample taken using the Poco F4 5G, so you can judge yourself how good the clarity of the video is and also the audio output from the front camera. The phone also supports additional modes like short videos, vlog mode, movie effects, long exposure, clone mode, which can be toggled from the menu. So that was the camera review of the Poco F4 5G. So how does it stack up as a camera smartphone in the 30K segment? Looking at the images, you can see the primary camera does a good job in daylight, decent ultra wide, close-up shots are good, and decent looking night photography as well, which won't disappoint most of the users. Along with that, you also get good video recording, and selfie camera also looks good. The macros are average as expected from the 2 megapixel sensor, and sharpness levels needs a bit more fine tuning, especially with the over sharpening issue. But overall, looking at the camera, the Poco F4 has a good camera setup which won't disappoint users for sure, and it is definitely improved over the Poco F3 GT. So if you're looking for a camera smartphone around the 30K price segment, Poco F4 5G should be there in your list. So that is a camera review of the Poco F4 5G. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. Do hit that like button and also hit the subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in our next video. Have a great day.